This story took place in a campaign I've been running for a fairly large group since September. There were a ton of things that happened in this particular session, but the main ridiculousness centered around 4 characters, the first of which was a half-orc barbarian named Minette, who tends to not actually be too aggressive. Next up is Oven, a Dragonborn rogue who accidentally sent her own twin to another dimension. She's kind of crazy. And the last 2 are a package deal. We have George, the halfling fighter, and his steed, Lenny, a wild magic sorcerer, satyr. He looks like this. Anyways, these 2 are actually new additions to the party, as the first thing that happened in the session was Oogway and Vimodius, Duke of Skedaddle, the 2 players' previous characters, dying and leaving. After Oogway was murdered by a gang member he had previously had dealings with, at the request of the player, Vimodius had gotten tired of being good and departed with the party. This allowed for the entrance of the 2 most ridiculous characters I've ever heard of. In came George, a small, albeit sturdy fighter, riding in on Lenny, a larger, goat with a Lenny face for a head. They entered the tavern with a as Lenny squeezed his way through the rundown door. They were followed quickly after by Oven, the rogue who, noticing this odd creature, followed eagerly. Oven quickly got distracted upon entering the building and ended up stealing a particularly large ruby from a sleeping patron. Oven then stored the huge gem in the sneakiest place ever, her mouth. After a lot of dialogue and many a mug of ale being spilled, the party traveled through a nearby forest to reach their next destination. During this hike, they encountered a group of goblins. They almost immediately engaged in combat, with one party member taking on the 2 big guys and the other 4 left to take on the remainder. Oven started out by taking on 2 goblins, with the ruby still in her mouth. That ended with Oven running away towards their destination after nearly dying to the goblins.
Why are you running? Why are you running?
Next up was Lenny and George, taking on 2 more goblins. George quickly dispatched of one of the goblins, meanwhile Lenny showed his true powers. The magic energy of his spells accumulated at the tips of his horns as he let loose 2 lasers! spells. This finished off the next goblin. And lastly, we get to Minette, and the only named goblin, Spongy. Spongy stared at Minette, and as threateningly as possible said, "Give me your money and expensive things," and Minette simply responded with,
"Here, you can have 1 bottle of holy water."
Absolutely taken aback by the stranger's generosity, Spongy chugged the holy water and requested for more items, and Minette responded with,
"I'll trade you these handcuffs for something."
And so Spongy said, "What about this flask for those handcuffs?" And Minette said,
"Deal."
And then proceeded to handcuff him to a tree. After the battle had concluded, Minette decided to release Spongy under the condition that he followed with them, and under my conditions, namely that he wouldn't help in battle, and he would request food and shoes often. But he agreed. And that's how the session ended. I really did try to cut this video down as short as possible, but the sheer amount of absolutely absurd things that happened made for this to be a really long script. I'd just like to give a big thank you for Minette, aka Kate, for lending her voice to this video, and lastly, I'd like to thank all of you for watching. A like, comment, or subscription would mean a ton. Have a great day.